Hey everybody, it's Diana Van Blaricom, your Vice President of ERP Strategy here at ROI. And joining me today are two of my supply chain friends. We've got Ben Hoagland, say hi
Hello.
Ben, and Reginald Williams. Hey Reggie.
Hello. Hello.
Hey guys, thanks for joining me. Today we are going to talk about item lifecycle management. So for the folks who are joining us, Ben, can you give a little bit of background on what item lifecycle management is and why it's important to folks?
Yeah, absolutely. So item lifecycle management is a rebranding of a product Infor used to have called recall management. And as clients started to use it, they realized that it can be used for more than just recalls. And so probably prompted the name change. But really what it is a product where you can coordinate tasks across an enterprise, across multiple facilities, and just make sure that all actions that need to be taken for some process have been taken and that is auditable. So if you think about a recall situation, you need to coordinate multiple individuals across the organization. They all have a task to do. And then at the end of the day, you can produce reports in case the FDA wants to audit the recall process or a joint commission. And so this product really allows that coordination and communication to all happen within the system instead of using external, email or other things which are difficult to audit and kind of combine all the information into a nice package.
So, Ben, what can customers think about from a planning perspective when it comes to implementing item lifecycle management?
From a planning perspective, you really need to know which processes you want to use. And what I mean by that is it can be used for more than recalls. And so a lot of people, when they think of item lifecycle management, they think of just recalls. However, it can be used for new item adds. It can also be used for product conversions. A lot of times organizations have standardization efforts where they're
Mhm.
moving from one product to another. And people need to take actions such as, removing the old stock and notifying a coordinator or whoever is managing the process that the stock has been removed. And then they need to bring the new stock of the new item in to not only their locations, but oftentimes distributors as well. So you can involve all of these individuals in this process, assign them different tasks to make sure that everything is complete before the actual conversion event happens so that you can have a smooth transition.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Do you want to share your screen and let's take a look at some product?
Absolutely. Okay, so when we go into the system and we're taking a look at item lifecycle management, there's a number of different roles. And so the item lifecycle administrator is the role that you can see here that I'm in. This is the person that sets up and configures most of the system. Now there's also the item lifecycle coordinator. This is kind of the quarterback of the software. So this is the person that's really going to like project manage a certain process. And then they're also going to maintain the day-to-day notices coming in and seeing which ones need to be sent out and how they're going to be coordinated. Then there is the item lifecycle responder. These are who the tasks are going to be given to. So they'll have certain actions they need to take and respond back to the coordinator that they've happened. And there's also item lifecycle reporter. These individuals may have no other role in the system besides the item lifecycle reporter. It gives them the ability to actually report a notice. Oftentimes during a recall event, shared services, if you have a shared services model, they may get recall notifications from vendors or manufacturers, but also sometimes those notifications go out to individuals in the field, maybe a specific facility. And so they can actually have the ability to send notices to the coordinator and have the coordinator review them. So those are the main roles of item lifecycle management.
So, is there a way to prevent a notice? So, when the recalls come in, right? Do you think organizations struggle with the notice kind of going off into a black hole and not being responded to? And this is a good way to help cover some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Oftentimes this happens through email. A notice is sent to somebody at Shared Services Center or whoever really handles the recall coordination across the enterprise. or even worse, would be something like interoffice mail. So this allows in the auditability, and it goes into a central queue, which I can show here. Item lifecycle.
So really, they should never miss a notification or have the risk of missing a notification if we're using the system.
Yes, it severely limits the possibility of that happen. And there's also another feature that I love about this, and that is you can actually get notices from an organization called the National Recall Action Center, or NRAC. And there's a built-in feed in Item Lifecycle Management where this information comes directly in to the queue that the Item Lifecycle Coordinator can review, so that they can get notices directly really from the National Recall Action Center. And then so that combined with the users having the ability to report notices severely limits the possibility of you missing one. And so when you're taking a look at the software here, the Item Lifecycle Coordinator has a pending notices section, and I've got this filtered. You can see a lot of them are coming in. Most of these are from the National Recall Action Center, so they just come in automatically. Now, if a user reports a notice that has already come in through the National Recall Action Center, you can go into the notice and just mark it as a duplicate. You can close it as a duplicate, so you don't need to review, one or the other, depending on which information is more complete. And then if a user submits a notice, it comes into the same queue. And so this is really the queue that the Item Lifecycle Coordinator works. Another nice feature, which we'll show a little bit later, is historically when the person that's managing recall notices, they've got the task of seeing if it's been used across the organization. Now, sometimes the vendor or the manufacturer will let you know that you have used the product. Other times when you see a FDA Class 1 recall or something important, oftentimes you need to query the system. Is it living on a contract? Have requisitions been created for this item, or purchase orders been created? So with this product, you can actually just do a query, and it can look at various things in the system, such as contracts, such as usage of POs, of requisitions, and it can tell you where it's been used and automatically assign people tied with those locations. They'll automatically be assigned to the recall notice because usage has occurred in the system. So that's one extremely beneficial feature.
So it's fairly easy for an organization to put this kind of oversight in place just by connecting to the National Recall Center and then having the system set up to do all these notifications. I mean, it really reduces your risk of not hearing about something.
Absolutely. Now, in my past, when I used to work at a hospital organization, the FDA will come in and they'll oftentimes say, okay, can you please let me know what's happened for this recall notice? There's a recall notice from this manufacturer on this date. Can you please show me all the activity that happened across your organization? And without a system like this, those can be highly stressful events, because getting the information to the FDA that they require can be difficult if you're scouring through emails and trying to piece together exactly what happened. And this Item Lifecycle Management really bundles up all those actions into a nice package for those audit agencies.
Yeah, that's terrific. And sometimes when Joint Commission does an audit too, they'll show up unexpectedly and start digging as well. So having quick access to these reports and all of the notifications that you have sent out, I think, is going to be key.
Absolutely. I mean, there's other products that people use in the system from various other organizations. But the downfall of those is that they don't allow you to do this product transaction query. They'll give you the same functionality such as the NRAC feed here, where you can automatically have notifications coming in. But it is really it's really left up to you to figure out if it's been used in your organization. Because Item Lifecycle Management is tied into the greater Infor ERP, we have the ability to do that automatically just by clicking a button, which is extremely valuable.
Yeah, I don't know why you wouldn't want to do this, right? It makes this the administration and the oversight so much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing to think about when you're thinking about this product is, like I mentioned in the beginning, not to pigeonhole it only for recalls. So it's just a product that allows you to think about a process in your organization and think, who should be involved? What type of actions should they take? And, how can I coordinate this? So when you're talking about, let's say, a new item add, now this is built-in functionality with Item Lifecycle Management to where a requester can propose a new item. It will automatically come in to the new item proposals queue. However, you can think about everybody that needs to be involved in an item add that maybe you have to use email today with. For instance, the clinical team, they may have to set up a charge code for it. And so they can be a part of this process to say, yes, a charge code's been added here. Here's the CDM number for you to add to the item master, your item locations if you want to. You can also say, somebody needs to be responsible for bringing this stock into your main distributor if you're going to use it often. So those are often things that are done outside of the system. And really, any process you want to bring transparency to, you can use it here. Traditionally, item add processes happen through email, or you have to create another system like SharePoint to manage it. Where with this product, everything can happen in the system. You can get service level agreement metrics from it. How fast can we create a new item? How fast can we respond to a new recall event, and so forth. So there's a lot of uses for it that are really outside of the recall and even item proposal process that you can use it for.
So Ben, does this use the traditional tools that we think of that live within Cloud Suite, like the workflow tools around Infor process automation and security and everything else?
So it does have hooks into those. Now it is designed in a way where you can be used for the most part without those. So as we go through notices and we demonstrate how to respond to a notice, it's very flexible to the point where you normally don't need Infor process automation. However, there is a feature where the item lifecycle coordinator is responsible for closing the notice after all tasks have been complete. But you do have the option of saying, okay, once the notice is closed, it should route to a director or a VP of supply chain or whoever it needs to route to. And they can look over the notice and make sure that all tasks are complete, and then they're the ultimate sign off. So it does have a way to hand off the ultimate closure of the notice to another individual using process automation.
Okay, perfect.
Let me show a couple other administrative features of this.
Okay.
Lifecycle administrator is where you do this. You go to the setup. You can see the item lifecycle management groups. This provides some functionality. So if I create a notice and I assign people, I can require that the task needs to be accepted. Now this is important because let's say that you have an organization with 15 hospitals and you're going to send out a notice to all the materials managers. Now that's a lot to coordinate. It would just say in process. But if you require task acceptance, you can see that these individuals have actually looked at the notice and that they've accepted the task. So they're explicitly saying that, yes, I'm aware of the task and I'm going to start to work it. Now, if you require this and you see that people haven't accepted the task, then they may prompt you as the item lifecycle coordinator to check in with those folks and make sure that they are in fact have seen the notice and that they are going to work it. Another nice feature is they must indicate if quantity is found. So during a recall event, yes, I had 5 in stock, and you can require that information.
So we're using the system as a great tool to get people to take accountability for some of this, right? Which again goes back to reducing our risk.
Yes. Absolutely. And when we talk about decreasing risk, another nice thing that is this feature here, where we can strict process defaulting. So if this recall is extremely impactful, you can say, for the purchase orders, you can give a warning that the item is on recall, or you can say there's a hard error. It's just not going to let it process. Same thing with requisitions, or even issuing out of inventory. We don't want anybody to get that affected item. So it says, no warning. There's a warning here, or a hard error. Now this is at a global level if you do this in the Item Lifecycle Management group. However, this can be also input on each individual recall notices. So it provides you flexibility. Some of the recall notices may need a hard error while others do not. So another way to decrease risk across the organization.
Perfect. So on the administrator side, when we look at putting this system in place, what are some things that customers could do to kind of get ready for this, right? What's some of the prep work that they could be doing?
Well, one of the things that you need to prep is the concept of who's going to be the responders. So if we take a look at this, I gave an example earlier of a recall notice going out to an organization that has 15 hospitals, let's say. So you need to make sure that you know who are going to be responders. And this doesn't just need to be materials managers. There can be anybody involved in the process. This could be a VAT team for item proposals. This could be clinical resources, maybe in a cath lab. Oftentimes they have stock that may not be in a perpetual. They need to be a part of this. So, first thing is users. The next thing is the concept of domains. So when you're doing a recall notice, you have the ability to take a look at organizations. So, this is a main inventory location. Maybe here's a couple cath labs. And if I do a recall notice for, let's say, a special item, they're notoriously difficult to figure out, complete usage, because individuals may put in the item differently as they're using it. So you could say that this item is most oftentimes used in cath labs. And because it's a special item, it doesn't have an item master record in the system, we're a little unsure about the usage. So what you can do is you can say, I'm going to send it out to all cath labs. We may not show that they've had usage, but this is extremely important. Everybody needs to review it. So thinking about your domains, those areas like a cath lab, where we can group together all of those locations across an enterprise and send out one notification to all of those areas. Or perpetual inventory locations, grouping those together. And you may have more, maybe OB locations or maintenance areas. Mm-hmm. And again, so like locations can be grouped together in domains, and you can send out notices to all the locations at once. So thinking about your domains is another aspect of configuration that you want to think about. And then notice types. So we've got some examples here. Product recall. We've got a couple different classes of recalls that you can default certain information on. Most notably, the yellow and red alerts, where you can say it's after 3 days we're going to start sending some notifications, and after 5 days, then we're really going to start figuring out why notices haven't been completed or tasks haven't been completed. Product conversions, new item adds, if there's an item replacement, some of the notice types that you want to use this product for.
So Ben, when we send out all these notifications, everything in the ERP world now is going mobile, right? So I'm walking around with my phone in my pocket, or I'm sitting in a meeting with my iPad. As a user, am I able to get those notifications through my mobile Infor, maybe it's Infor Go or email?
So yes, all notices are sent out through email. So one of the things that you want to think about when setting up item lifecycle management, especially the users, is there must be an email for them in the HR resource record, or the user cannot be set up. And so that's what it uses as a way to communicate. So all of these notices, and you can even see email configuration here.
Mm-hmm.
So what information is going to be on those notices to the task owners can be configured here. So you can provide as much or as little information. And then also emails can be sent out upon the release of the notice, requesters, buyers, primary contacts on the contracts, and so forth. So yeah, all of these notices really do get sent out into email.
Okay. And it looks like it's the same kind of email template that we see across Cloud Suite, right? So we see email templates in finance, we see tons of email templates in HR, in the talent stuff. And I think the beauty of that is, if you notice here, I can make things bold and I can, have things stand out in the body of that email. Oftentimes if it's something urgent, maybe we make it bold and red, right? So they're really, what we want to do is target the content so it doesn't get buried in people's emails. Having a good quality subject, right? So people pay attention instead of, just kind of scrolling through and saying, I'll look at it later, I'll look at it later. Something to catch their attention, be short, concise, and get them into the system doing what they need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And then as a coordinator, you're going to be managing the process. So you can also decide when the emails are going to be sent to you. So after each task is accepted, that might be a lot of emails if you're using, if you're having a recall that spans across your organization. Or you can have it when just all tasks are accepted. So that might be what you want, depending on your, the size of the organization.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, I call it responsible use of notifications. A lot of times we hear people, oh, I want notifications for everything. And yes, I mean, in this case, you might want notifications for everything because it's patient facing and very critical. And in other places, you may want notifications that go out, and maybe the reminder notifications are on more of a responsible schedule. So I think that's something for an organization to think about culturally. What is the tolerance, if you will, for the emails that go out and the different times and the urgency, right? Now, in the case of recalling an item, I think that's a little more urgent than, hey, you didn't get your performance appraisal done. But, I think we have to think about, culturally, what will our organization bear and who do we want those contacts to go? Because we also don't want the emails just going off into a void, right? We want them to be meaningful and we want them going to the targeted individuals. So I like that there's a lot of flexibility here to really think about where you're going to send those to be most effective.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So like you were saying, the email, when we're talking about emails, we do want to make them targeted so that individuals don't start, I guess,
Ignoring.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't want to inundate them with things that they can't take action on. So make sure they're actionable, they're specific to the user, and that they have the information they need to, oftentimes it takes them into the system to actually take a look at the recall notice, but you can also add additional information in the email body or context so that they know a little bit more information about that recall notice when it first gets to them.
Mm-hmm. Concise and meaningful. That's what we say about those email templates.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we're going through the additional setup in the administrator role, I wanted to point this out, the product transaction query. I've shown that a couple times so far. And this is where you can see what it's going to look at in the system. It's going to look at all these transactions, so rec lines, issues, purchase orders, transfers, inventory, par locations. You can see if it's going to look at lot and serial numbers. A lot of times when you receive a recall notification, it will say, these lots or these serial numbers have been affected, but maybe not all of the item itself has been affected. So if you are adding serial or lot numbers to your transactions, you can see that here. Documents, so you can take a look at contract lines, sourcing events, procurement template lines, and then also you can even take a look at patient procedure, lots and serial numbers. So if you're in RSS, request self-receiving, you can see those lot and serial numbers that we added to those requisitions as well. We'll take a look at that information. And then you can, choose which ones you actually want to look at. I think they're all valuable, so I usually recommend that they take a look at everything. Now, if you're not using strategic sourcing, maybe you can uncheck that. But otherwise, I think that most of those are important.
Yeah, I would think at a recall event, you would want to make sure that you're fully covered. It would, again, going back to reducing risk and just for the better or good of the organization to really have people have a confidence level that nothing's going to get missed.
Yeah, absolutely. One last thing that I didn't mention is the task instructions. So we've talked about notice types and the different uses that you can configure for this product, but also we can talk about the task instructions. So during an item add event, we might need that review. So that value analysis team. So those clinical folks have to take a look. And so we can say, here's the questions that when they receive the notice that they have to answer, the responders. Has the product been approved by the FDA? And you can allow attachments, and you can say that the response is required for this. There's other options depending on what type of response type you used here. But each question can be configured with these options so that after they answered all of these, that they've done a thorough analysis and review, and they've taken the appropriate actions that you wanted them to.
So this would be another place where, from a pre-work kind of planning perspective, people could be thinking about what type of instructions and questions do they want to have out there for when this process occurs.
Absolutely. And that's definitely something when you're configuring item lifecycle management, you want to see, how you're going to use it, who's going to be involved, and what actions they take. And so this is that last piece of what actions do we want them to take. Our standard is they do these three things, and we want documentation for those three things.
So Ben, do you think that most organizations will have a lot of this pre-work kind of well-defined already, or is it one of those things where it's in people's heads and we can assist with some kind of predefined questions and predefined email templates to get them started? Where do you think most organizations sit as far as having this process kind of well-defined?
I think for the most part, recalls are pretty well defined across most organizations. This is a workflow that all organizations have to do, especially supply chain. So they're very comfortable with that. They oftentimes have a subscription service to other organizations that offer this type of product. Again, it's not as well integrated as Item Lifecycle Management is. I think it becomes a little bit fuzzier on other processes, such as product conversion events. This is something supply chain does oftentimes, whether for a clinical purpose, maybe one of the items that they've been using has experienced some issues and they want to migrate to another item, or sometimes the product standardization effort is more for cost savings measures. And so that type of coordination is, I would say, a bit more out of the system, meaning, they rely on emails, they rely on, other tools to coordinate that. And so getting everything into the system might take a little bit more thought.
Okay, perfect. But once you have it in, all the automation applies and really the controls. I mean, just having that control, and really the integration, I think, is key, where you don't have a separate third-party system. You don't have people managing things through email. We've got kind of that traceability in the event of an audit, which is fantastic.
Yeah, and for those other systems like the product conversion event that I mentioned, it lessens the risk again, because we know that all actions have taken place, and so that if you do go live with a new item, that it's ready to go in your main distributors. It's been brought in, it's ready to go, it's live. That could be one of the questions you ask. The new item is in all of your perpetual inventory locations, and they have stock. So you're not going live with something that not all incomplete workflow. not all actions have been taken. So I can imagine you're going to experience better go live events or better outcomes for these processes by using a system like this.
Perfect. Okay, so beyond setup, we always know that there's a little bit of work in the setup, but I like to say the devil's in the details, and once you get everything set up, that's where all the automation comes into play. Can you switch gears a little bit and show us what it looks like to the end users? So the folks who are, not the setup folks, who are actually the consumers of these processes and interacting with the system every day.
Sure. So the first demo we're going to do is a recall event. And we have Reginald here with us, and he's going to play the part of the Item Lifecycle Responder. I'm going to play the part of the Item Lifecycle Coordinator. So I'm going to kick off the event and make the assignments that I need to.
Okay.
Coordinator. Okay. So I'm going to go to the pending notices section, and there's a new recall that came in for an Abbott needle. I'm going to go look at this. And so there'll be a description here, and there'll be a type. This type is going to be a product recall class 2. That means it's a medium recall type from the FDA. Mm-hmm. And a coordinator. I'm going to assign myself this. Now this is handy when you may have multiple coordinators. Maybe there'll be a backup coordinator. Mm. But you can have this automatically assigned as well. If there's only one coordinator, everything needs to be assigned to them. You can do that in the Item Lifecycle Management group. Okay, we're going to say that the responder needs to indicate if quantity is found. The source came internally. And so right here, I can say that the task that needs to be assigned for anybody that is found to have this product, once I run the product transaction query, is going to be return the product. So we want this return the product.
So not only are we going to assign it to folks, we can also tell them what to do, which is great.
Absolutely.
Give them some instructions.
Yep, you can have that in the task instructions, but you can also provide additional information to them as well, and things such as attachments and so forth, which we'll see in a moment.
Perfect.
So again, this is a product recall class 2. And this is the part where I mentioned, globally we can set if there's going to be a hard error or not, but we can do that again individually on the notice itself. So I'm just going to say warning.
Mm-hmm. So while you're doing that, Ben, do you think most organizations will use that warning level, and then if it's something major that comes in, do the override to a hard stop?
Yeah, I believe so. I think it just depends on how severe the recall event is. I mean, recall events can come in for things as simple as packaging changes to situations where it's the product's affected have pretty major risk, and so we might want hard warnings, hard errors there. But for the most case, we probably want warnings, and some of the users can decide if by reading the recall notice if that's something that they want to continue with or not.
Right.
I can save that here. And then we can see what products are affected. Mm-hmm. And the description. You can see some of the questions that I assigned it as a vendor return. So these are the questions that are going to be answered or asked of the responders. Now from here, we also have a reference. So in this recall, we can put the actual recall notification that we get from the vendor or manufacturer. And just like you mentioned, additional comments with additional attachments. So we could also add additional comments for them.
I was just gonna say, so if I'm getting the notification, I might also be able to open up and read that actual notice that came in from the FDA.
Absolutely, yep.
Perfect.
And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on this product transaction query. Mm-hmm. And it's what transaction dates are we looking at? And I'm just gonna do something that is a little bit older. And we can create tasks if something is found.
Mhm.
I'm going to say this is a medium level, and the due date is going to be, and it's going to look at all of these different things in the system. Again, we can set this on a per notice type, or we can actually have it default back to the global setting in the Item Lifecycle Management group as well.
All right. So now the system's doing its thing, right? The system is going to be the one that's going, looking, seeing where everything is, as opposed to the user trying to figure it out, right?
Right. And once this is done, if it does find things in the system, it's going to automatically assign tasks, just as it's done here. These weren't filled out before, and it's assigned it to Reginald because this item does have stock in the system. So this is a perpetual inventory item. We have stock on hand. And so Reginald, if we take a look at him, I'm just going to go to the administrator here again, just kind of show what it found. Reginald Williams is set up for the main inventory location. And we do have stock here. So that's how it knew to automatically assign Reginald. So this is great for situations like a requester may have just ordered a non-stock item. We don't have it on a contract. We don't have it in a perpetual inventory system. It's still going to find that based upon those timeframes that we set for transactions.
Perfect.
And then this is myself. So, I'll also get a task here. But once everything looks good, so the tasks have been assigned. Oops, I want to delete Reginald's. And I am going to delete myself because I am the coordinator here.
And you already know about it because you put it in.
Absolutely, yeah. And so we're just going to keep Reginald here. He's the responder. And again, like I mentioned earlier, we might be a little concerned if this wasn't a perpetual inventory item that other individuals need to know about it. And so that's where you can say, well, the cardiac cath lab should also know about this. And you can add that here. In this case, I won't, but this is where you can do that.
Mm-hmm. So you can target where it goes.
Yep.
Perfect.
And then,
Ben, while you're changing screens there, I'm just looking at this and thinking about those large healthcare organizations that have stuff everywhere, right? And folks that are ordering through their catalog or ordering non-stock items. And there's a huge benefit for this here too. But I'm also thinking about in the smaller organizations, maybe it's one hospital, community hospital, where I think some of the recall process might get lost because they tend to run a little bit lean and mean and don't have time for more of the administrative things because they're really really focused on that patient care and thinking, oh, I'll do the administrative stuff on this day or at this time of day, and things happen. So I think there's a huge benefit here across the entire healthcare community regardless of the size of your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is the case not only for recalls, but it's also the case for item ad events. So like I said, many organizations, their item ad process mainly consists out of working out of an email box. Individuals submit, Microsoft Excel sheets, pre-populated Word documents, whatever the case might be. There's little transparency to exactly where that item ad request is in the process. Are they meeting their SLAs? Most of the time, users in the fields don't think supply chain is. This is a way to bring transparency to these two main processes with recalls and item ads that historically haven't had a lot of transparency to them. So yeah, even smaller organizations could really benefit from this module. And lastly here, we've got notifications. So anybody that needs to be kept up to date on the progress of this. This might be a good example of an item ad process. Maybe the person that originally submitted it can be used here as a notification. When the notice is closed out, they'll get a notice that it was completed. And so anybody that needs to watch it can be added here. Now, once everything's done and everything looks good, you can release the notice. And this is actually going to send it out to everybody that is a part of these domains or really has been assigned the task. So let's do that. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut over and have Reginald display his screen, and he can actually show and demonstrate what first the email notification looks like, and then also what the item lifecycle responder, what their role looks like. You know, what questions they're going to answer, what the screens look like for them, and so forth.
Perfect. Okay.
Thank you. So the task came to my queue. I am the item lifecycle responder. You know, to get there, I just select a role, and then this is my homepage dashboard. So let's open up the details of it here. Okay, so I'll open up the details. I have some information about the notice. It's notice number 48, Abbott Lab Needles. The priority is medium, due date showing. Sort of gives me a description. And then I have some different tasks, you know, associated right here.
Okay, the first thing you need to do is
Ask.
Accept.
accept it, yeah. What Reginald just did there is he accepted the task. Now that's going to display to me as the coordinator that he's actually accepted the task. And so when there's a lot of people involved on a given flow or a given process, I can see that he's actually accepted it. So I don't have to be worried so much about him, but others that haven't accepted it, you know, maybe I ping them and ensure that they have seen the notice and that they are going to work it.
So we can monitor that people are actually paying attention to the notifications.
Yeah, and another great aspect of this is if the item lifecycle responder is unsure what they need to do with it, or they just need to ask the item lifecycle coordinator a question, they can do that. So all of that communication that may historically happen in emails can happen right within this system. So Reginald, I don't know if you want to ask me a question here, we can kind of show how that process looks.
Okay. We'll just see. Okay.
Okay, now one thing you'll notice is that a Q&A tab appeared. So all of the history of the communications between the coordinator and the different item lifecycle responders is going to be cataloged in each one of those. And so I'm going to go back to my notice and I'm going to respond to Reginald.
And these things are happening in real time too, guys, right? I mean, this isn't like a batch thing that happens. This is real time during the day, during the night, whenever we're in the system. We're not waiting for these notifications. We're not waiting for someone to find out what's going on. This stuff's going real time.
Yep, absolutely. And so on my screen, a Q&A tab also appeared, and it has a number next to it, number 1. So that just means that I've got an active question for myself. I'm going to answer the question and say, need to. So I just submitted it, and if you click on the Q&A tab, you can see my answer. And I'll also get an email saying that I've responded to the question that he's asked as well. I just said need to return the entire amount in stock. So if that's good enough, then he can start to answer the questions that we have for the actual notice itself. Yeah. Okay. So in this screen, these are the questions that I sent out as far as task instructions that Reginald needs to respond to.
What is the return number?
So let's assume that Reginald's made a return in the system for the quantity that he had in stock, and that there's going to be a vendor return number in the system.
Okay. To whom the product returned to, say vendor. All right, and then we'll save.
So go back one and complete the task. So this error is important. If you remember back when we were the Item Lifecycle Administrator, we mentioned that we're going to require them to provide us feedback on the number that they had on in stock. So he must enter quantities right here and let me know that there was 5. So in the quantity. Now, only when he's done that, then he can complete the task.
So it's really going to have you give details on what's sitting out there.
So
For a
Reginald,
unit of measure.
Yeah. Okay.
So Ben, while that's committing to the system, so say Reggie's out at a location and he's returning these items and he's returning them to the vendor. What does that process look like? Is he packaging things up and taking them down to the mailroom? And what does that process look like for the folks that are out in the field?
So that's great. And so oftentimes what I like to do for the vendor return is there'll be a notice type of return product to main storeroom. And that's for all the requesters out on the field, maybe the nursing units, maybe they've been issued this recalled product in the past. Now that was identified because of those issue transactions. The product transaction query picked it up. So those nursing units, they'll return it to the inventory manager. Now, once that's all been done, and maybe that's a question for Reginald too, has all the product been returned from the requesting locations? And then he'll package all of that up and he'll do a vendor return within the system so that the amount in stock is decremented and all of those items that have been returned from those requesting locations can be sent back to either the vendor or the manufacturer at that point in time. He'll receive, he'll try to get a RMA, return materials authorization from them, and he'll create a vendor return, and that can be cataloged in this system so we have the full audit trail. Not only has Reginald said that he's returned it, but he's provided the system return number that we can verify as well.
That's perfect. So for each of the folks that are out in the locations who are maybe getting these notifications, we can also give them instructions on what to do with the product, right? So maybe we're taking it back to that central location and then it's being shipped out. But we have the ability to control the process all from right within the notification.
Yep, absolutely. And so we can verify anybody that's been on the product transaction query. They might say, well, we've consumed those items. They're no, I know that the product transaction query identified us, but we've already consumed those in the past. But we do have, one in one of the nursing rooms or, some on our parts that we are returning to the storeroom.
Perfect. Well, thanks for joining me, guys. This was really, really good stuff. I think just another huge feature that brings life and just a lot of automation and just reassurance as we implement Infor Cloud Suite, just seeing just kind of people's jobs getting easier. You know, I always talk about the software should be a tool that helps you do your job, bionically, right? Better, stronger, faster. But it really becomes a tool that helps us manage and not give us more headaches. So thanks for walking us through that today. And thanks for showing off the system a little bit. Thanks,
Yeah, no
Ben.
problem.
Thanks, Reggie. We'll see you guys next time on In the Know.
Yeah, and on next time we'll discuss the benefits of using item lifecycle management for item proposals and go through that process.
Perfect. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.